we did listen to some very interesting historical, legal perspectives, religious perspectives as well, which all sort of seem to have some interference with jurisdictions and things like that. Some very, very insightful content and stuff. I would like to open the floor to questions. Does anybody have any questions to any of the panelist participants? Yes, please.
So I have some questions for Rafael about the Tatars. First of all, you said that they had freedom of religion, including to build mosques. Did they all practice Islam, or did some of them practice Buddhism or Mongolian traditional shamanism, religion such as that? And following up on that, initially, what language did they speak? Or did they very quickly switch to Polish, or did they continue speaking their original language, at least for some, for a couple generations? And then finally, if they had freedom to right to self-government and to adjudicate disputes, who adjudicated in mixed disputes between Tatars and non-Tatars?
Between Tatars and non-Tatars, there was Polish or Lithuanian law applicable. When you ask me about the religion, most of them were Muslims. In fact, all of them were Muslims. However, their Islam was not. It was Sunni Islam, but with elements of their previous shaman practices. And there was a group of Tatars who convert to Catholicism because of social impact of their of the social surroundings. Yes, and when you ask me about the languages, they have spoken with Turkish, with some kind of Turkish language. However, it was quite interesting that they created their own language, which was a mixture of Polish, Belarusian, and their previous Turkish language, which was even till 19th century written with Arabic letters. However, nowadays there are no many, or in fact I think that are only few people who understand and can read old texts.
I was just wondering, I have some sort of similar questions. Rafael, do they still exist, the Tatars, or did they cease to exist?
Yes, they seem to exist. There are a few hundreds of Tatars in Poland nowadays.
Do they have any political significance or any...
Political significance, minor, I think.
Okay.
Recently, when there was a dispute in Poland about the religious slaughter, they took their positions. They have 3 mosques, 2 in eastern Poland and 1 in the north. And that's all, I think, because they are really a colonialized group.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, please.
I have another one. No one else does. This is for Kasper about the Staros. Can you tell me a little bit about their the background? Where does the Staros come from, and how does he get his job?
Oh, that's an interesting issue, because there are still disputes in Polish legal history. Where does the Staros as an office come from? And I think the most reliable hypothesis is that they emerge in the. It is sure that they emerged in the beginning of 14th century when there were the Czech kings in Poland. So in Poland that was Václav II and Václav I, and that was the big strict beginning of the 14th century. And in that time there emerged starosts in Poland, and probably they are connected with mostly the same institution that existed in the same time in the Kingdom of Bohemia. So that's, in my opinion, the most reliable thesis. But there are some others. For example, that for instance, there's a thesis that was a Polish institution that was adopted then partially by the Czech kings, so Bohemian kings, and then it existed in Poland. But I think it's the issue that still requires some more research. So it's a questionable issue.
Kaspar, I was also wondering about the contemporary modern day times equivalent of a starosta. Is there something like that in contemporary legal terms?
Yeah, in Polish administration system, is starosta has also there exists an office called starosta, but of course it does not have any resemblance from the old Polish times. Its position in government is territorial government is complicated because he's a member of self-governance. In the Polish self-government has three
levels.
3 levels. Yeah, that's a good word. 3 levels, and starosta is the member of the mid-level, but he's granted also some competences, and he works as a local element of the government itself. So it's quite complicated. But I think mostly he is the element of Polish self-government in this mid-level.
So it's quite interesting. So we do observe that they have survived throughout the centuries, and they probably will have some influence in the future as well. Is that what you think? Or?
I think yes. In general, some Polish institutions still has the names connected with this old Polish history. Yeah, we have still same as our parliament. We have Sejmix, so these local assemblies it's the self-government in the level of voivodeships, and also we have voivodes, which were also present in the old Polish times, and they are still the representatives of government in voivodeships in nowadays Poland. So
voivodeships are something quite unique, I think, in the Polish system, or they're quite unique in Europe, as far as I remember. No, is that? I remember reading something about it, but I'm not too sure.
Nowadays voivodeships are it's also complicated because it's the highest level of self-government, and in the same time there are also it's the element of this administrative district. There are 16 voivodeships in Poland.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, very, very different in Germany, for example. That's really interesting. Thank you very much. Does somebody else have any other questions? I would like to ask Lukas. Sorry. You were talking about the tithe, and it seemed to have been a very, very, very big topic, obviously, in medieval, from legal perspectives. A very significant concept from a religious perspective as well. Probably the most significant concept, which also led to the troubles with regards to the Reformation, as far as I remember. Lukas, I was just wondering, it seems that they have been some sort of institutional construct, and do you think that they provided the basis to sort of establish some normative structures? Do you think that'll be an adequate view to say that the tithe provided some sort of basis to sort of for the emergence of normative structures? Because from what I've read about the tithe, it seemed that it was very organized. It was very organized. So it seems that they maybe have sort of provided the start of some normative structures. Or do you think that's not an adequate view? It just seems that they have they did seem to be very, very organized, a tax collecting system. So it seems to me as if we are observing the beginning of some normative structures, some norms, legal norms. But I was just wondering whether you would agree with that, or would you say that's totally not the case?
We should remember that in Poland the tax administration was so small. So in the tithe, it was a basic contribution for the church. So, as I told, many parish churches had only this tithe. Yes, they had some lands, but it was very small. It was very small grants. So for this parish, priest, the tithe, its value was very big.
Mm-hmm. So do you think then the legal impact of the tithe was rather small? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much. And just one last question, if anybody has any other questions. No. Iris, I was just wondering, you were talking about the French Protestants. Would you, by any chance, were you referring to the Huguenots? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, it's the same Protestant, Huguenot,
right.
the same.
Because there's a lot of them actually immigrated to Germany and actually to Berlin and Potsdam, and they said because the Prussian king provided... the Prussian king offered to not prosecute them.
Yes.
But then you were saying that the judges did not prosecute them either. So I didn't understand this really. So there was. You said that there was no legislation that forbade the practice of Protestantism. Is that right? So
yeah, is that right? Like between 1668 to 1685. After that, the practice of Protestantism is completely forbidden, and the Protestants had not the right to allow to go to another country.
Oh, okay.
It's forbidden too.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's terrible. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, right. Well, that's great. I was just wondering about that because they. The Huguenots were quite important for the region. In Berlin, for example, they brought a lot of practical trade with them. That's really interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you all panelists. It was very, very interesting. And I think that's us finished. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your applause.